Elijah Snow, what is up for 5? Doesn't Sherry Redstone have 80% of the voting shares for Paramount? She has trust control of her entertainment company also, as I understand it. I don't know if she's got 80% voting shares for Paramount.
She has a lot, and that's why Zaslav is talking to her,
Yeah, she has
and the fact that those two are
amount.
talking is a big deal.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are trying to shirk this whole thing. Some people are saying, well, Warner Brothers isn't in any financial. No, here's the thing people are forgetting. Warner Brothers has a big daddy they keep forgetting about, named AT&T, that if they really needed to pull some strings, they could probably do that. But at the same time, I think from what I've been hearing capital-wise, they're just fine. This is a merger that may not at first look great for Warner Brothers because they are going to be paying off a lot of Paramount's debt. Paramount, and here's the thing, what I've been trying to tell people too about this mini merger thing, if this merger thing, if it happens, Paramount is barely even a major studio anymore. They're more or less considered a minor studio now.
Yeah,
a mini major,
a mid-major. Yeah,
because they have actually been downgraded on the.
They're like Skydance,
like stock exchange or whatever. Yeah, they've been downgraded now. Their stock is trading at like $15 a pop or something like that.
It's been floating around there for a while. In fact, I'll pull it up. I tell you what, since you brought it up.
So they're barely even on, like, like people are trying to make Warner Brothers out like they're in some rough shape.
I'm not going to say I haven't been sitting on Paramount stock.
Well, you might get lucky here if this works out for you. Because the other thing is I'm not so sure where Star Trek is up in this stuff either. Yeah, this is not financial advice.
No,
but as I've been saying for a while, Paramount is in such dire straits. They're probably the worst shape of any studio in Hollywood. Well, people talk about all the others, but these guys they're at 15 exactly.
Yeah. Well, they've been there for a while. I mean, they've been floating at this, and let me share everybody because
I might have a few bucks to buy some stock now. No, I was kidding.
They bounced around. They're
Mikey,
way overvalued.
Go buy me some stock in Paramount.
But let me show you. I mean, if you go back here just to 20, I mean, look, back in 2021. $64. I mean, and it's been a downward slide since then. So, I mean, this is one of these things. Y'all have heard me talk about this. Paramount is one of these companies that is sitting out there, and they have been for some time, the last couple of years. Basically, ever since Tom, like y'all were talking about this on Midnight's Edge, when they rebranded and they went from Viacom. And then they changed
CBS.
They even went so far as to change their ticker symbol on the NASDAQ to PARA. It was VIAC. It was Viacom.
One of the biggest companies ever. Yeah,
it's now
in the entertainment industry.
Yeah, it's now PARA, and the reason they did this was for marketing. They wanted people to recognize Paramount because more people recognize Paramount than Viacom. So they changed the ticker to PARA, right? What, a year, 2 years ago now, whatever it was. And ever since then, I've been saying they've just been sitting around waiting for somebody to come along and buy them, be it an Apple or an Amazon. Amazon went out and got MGM, so they're probably not going to be able to pick up Paramount. But Apple is still out there, or you've got this stuff going on with Warner Brothers. And Apple may just wait.
It might not happen.
It might not happen. Like there's
Sherry
so
could
many
be
things.
using Zaslav just to get Skydance to up their
and that could be
offer as well.
Yeah, that totally could be. And the thing with Skydance is that they're not publicly traded. Those are the Ellisons. I mean, again, it's one of these things to where if you want to, the best chance for Paramount to get bought is going to be a private equity deal, period, end of story. Now, once it goes to private equity, and if it were to get fixed, built back up, restructured, and then maybe, a couple of years down the road, that private equity firm could flip it, like flip that house, like literally flip that house, but with a movie studio. And they could flip that house to Amazon or to Apple or somebody else or whatever. That's a very likely scenario in my world. So I think that this is going to be an interesting one to see, just to see how it goes. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. I mean, I think it's going to float out there in the ether for a while. I mean, all joking aside, folks, please don't take my my wisecrack is go buy Paramount or go sell Paramount. No, none of that. None of that. We don't do that here. But it's like anything else. It's, something could happen, something could not. This could go either way. But I've seen companies all the time.
Paramount's going to sell one way or another, probably. That's the thing.
They will, but the question is, I think at this point, it feels more likely like the Skydance kind of thing where this is going to be a private equity deal.
I think you're possibly right, too, because Mikey, when he was talking about it the other day with us, he's like, I don't even know why Zaslav's bringing up things like mergers. That's not going to probably happen. What's more likely is
they're just
they'll end up buying off pieces. Yeah,
Zaslav and Warner Brothers are just coming out of
because I don't even think they can legally do another merger for like another year or something like that. Somebody said
it's like
another half a year somewhere in there.
No, well, I got to go look at the specifics, Tom. But there's a difference.
But you know what I'm saying?
They can't sell. They can't Zaslav can't put Warner Brothers up for sale for another year or whatever it is.
Okay.
But I don't know if that would include them. I don't know if that would be necessarily inclusive of an M&A, a merger and acquisition.
Okay.
So I mean, like if they and Paramount were to merge or they were to bring in a piece of Paramount, I don't think that necessarily would be precluded from happening. But if they were to say, hey, Amazon's come in and offered us $30 billion. Mm-hmm. Well, you can't. Now, realistically, if Amazon came in and offered a big chunk of money, or Apple did, and the contract said, well, you can't sell it
which is twice what I think Paramount is worth right now. But anyway, go on.
The reality is, though, Tom, all I was going to say is that the 70% owners of Warner Brothers, which are AT&T stockholders, they're going to vote to approve anyway. They're going to say, okay, we're good. We'll let that part of the contract go. If the offers, this just happened with U.S. Steel. U.S. Steel was getting one of the oldest companies in America. They just got a big offer from a Japanese outfit, and they took it. Right? It looks like they're accepting it. But they were getting offers for $35 or what amounted to like $35 a share for U.S. Steel for months on end. They refused them all, and then all of a sudden, Monday this week, I think it was Nippon or who was it came in? A big Japanese outfit came in and offered them the equivalent of almost $50 a share. So that happens, and of course they accepted at that point. U.S. Steel's stock price exploded like 40% in one day. For that. That's the kind of thing that could happen to a Paramount or a Warner Brothers if something like that were to come along in theory, but it's got to actually happen, right? So we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, just from my understanding of the situation, though, and this is not financial or anything. I'm not even remotely in that region of, that's not even my domain. But like, I would see them probably, like we already kind of brought this up, but they would probably have a bigger problem with the cable channels than getting their hands on Paramount or CBS at this point. I think those two are the bigger possibility. The problem will lie in their monopoly over these cable channels. I think it's going to be the bigger problem here, but we'll have to see how it pans out.
Yeah, that's just it.
It may not even be them. It could be Skydance. So
like I said, I think private equity is probably more likely at this point. Nikki D for 5, if Skydance acquires control of Paramount IPs, does this increase Tom Cruise's influence over those properties? What Tom said.
It's going to be the Tom Cruise studio. Well, that's where I said, I honestly not even sure, like what Skydance wants is they want that Paramount logo.
Yes.
So Tom Cruise can sit in his desk and go, I own a studio.
Yep.
Like, I think Tom Cruise will turn himself into... Tom Cruise could be one of the best things to ever happen to Hollywood.
I agree.
He could be like the next... one of those kind of maverick producers that we haven't had in a long time.
You said maverick.
And I meant it on purpose punnily.
I know.
And it's just because he reminds me of like, what's his name from Paramount for years? The guy who produced the Godfather and Rosemary's Baby. Robert Evans. I could see him being a Robert Evans type. Somebody who's really good with people because he's charming. That's one thing I've always heard about. I've known at least 3 or 4 people now who have met Tom Cruise. And that's one thing they all say about him. He's one of the most charming, nicest guys in the world. And if you can get him talking on a topic that he loves, he's even more charming and just in the zone. So, like, I mean, sure, you can rub him the wrong way, but I see him as one of these guys who could take this and run with it. He wants that Paramount logo. This is also why I don't see Skydance being all that concerned with the television side of things, or even the catalog pre 1980. Because you go pre 1980, it's a lot of westerns and all the older Paramount stuff. That Skydance is going to be like, well, whatever. We don't need all that shit. We just want the Tom Cruise movies. Because obviously, 90% of Tom Cruise's catalog is Paramount movies.
Yeah. I mean, that's really the big ones. Yeah, you're right. And that's just it. So I think that would be, I think it'd be fascinating if they can figure out a way to
They
do
might
this.
keep the whole shebang. I just see that being the more likely scenario is that Skydance doesn't want anything to do with CBS or any of the cable networks. They'll just want the studio.
They don't. I don't think they want broadcast channels.
But then that's where Zaslav will be. Well, I am interested, and he may not be able to get them all like we were talking about before, but that seems the most likely scenario. And yeah, Tom Cruise, it'd be the Tom Cruise studio, man. I mean, it already kind of is. They don't really have any other hits. I mean, it's kind of crazy that Mission Impossible did as poor as it did, because that just kind of, I think, flabbergasted a lot of people. But I wonder if Mission Impossible just hasn't hit that wall that like Transformers has hit, where people are just like, okay, we've had enough of these. They're too much like the last one, the same kind of thing over and over again.
I think the one this summer, it really got squeezed in that completely unforeseen Barbenheimer, like.
That didn't help, but
that did not help.
Still think if people really were wanting to see this,
I agree.
They would have showed up for it. Yeah,
they would have gone. Look, I enjoyed it. They got one more to go. They're going to finish it off. I think they'll be fine. Hopefully, they'll have better luck this coming summer than they did this past summer. They did what? I think that movie closed out at 5. What was it?
It did okay, but it didn't make any money. It lost money.
It lost money at the theater for sure. But now what did help was that they did make it very clear that, I mean, Tom Cruise, man, he fought his nuts off along with Paramount. They did win a pretty substantial settlement from what I understood. So, I mean, even though the net cost came down to it's like $290 million. I don't remember if that included tax credits or not. But then there was like $90 to $100 million from what I heard in insurance reimbursements because of the whole COVID stoppages. So it basically brought the net production cost of the film down to around what they originally intended of about $200 million. So they needed about $600 to $700 million. Probably about $600 million at the box office. They got sort of close to that, but then again, of course, look, Skydance and Tom Cruise are still repping big checks after the fact for the streaming rights that go out, and everything else after that. So yes, I mean Paramount might have taken a bit of a bath on it, but Tom Cruise personally and Skydance did not.
I think if they had, I think you're right in the timing of it too, in a sense that it wasn't so much Barbenheimer as it was, and this is what I got into it with Odin and a few other people about it, was that it basically was eating up, Sound of Freedom was eating up the Mission Impossible crowd. It was. 90% of the people that would be going to see Mission Impossible were instead going to see Sound of Freedom. That was part of the problem.
You're 1,000% correct, because it literally was almost the exact same demographic group.
Yeah. And that's what I kept pointing out to people, is that Sound of Freedom is doing better than Mission Impossible is. Yep. Right. It was getting more per screen, even though it had like a third or half
more
of the
per
screens.
screen. Right. Yeah. I was going to say, from that perspective. And it hurt, because the big thing was losing the IMAX screens too, because that was a big thing for Top Gun, because it held those IMAX screens almost the whole summer. It only got to keep them for like a week and a half, I think, for MI7. And that was because Chris Nolan shot the whole, or almost the whole damn thing in IMAX. So that was
that hurt him. Yeah.
That was a brand ambassador movie for IMAX. So Oppenheimer was guaranteed to get full carte blanche for those screens for Oppenheimer with that. So let me grab the last few of these here. Rick Carrera gifted 5 Valiant Renegade channel memberships. What is up, Rick? We are going to do a member show for our Renegade and Rebel levels. Again, my intention was to do it this week, except for the fact that I was laying in bed in a pile of my own sweat for 3 days, miserable as hell. So fortunately, back up and running, at least at I'd say about 75% right now. Dustin Sensenig for $5. Hey, VR and Tom, I hope the two of y'all have a very Merry Christmas. Well, same to you, Dustin. Thank you so very much. Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.